I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, to start things off, we actually have a proclamation. Proclamation for Program Gamblers Awareness Month. Whereas there are individuals and families in our community adversely affected by problem gambling, and whereas compulsive gambling is often hidden from family members, social services, and mental health professionals, and whereas compulsive gambling often occurs in combination with other disorders such as chemical dependency and depression, and whereas it is important to raise awareness of the warning signs of compulsive gamblers and connect them with professional help. Now, therefore, I, Robert Morgan, Mayor of the City of Beatrice, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month and urge citizens to learn more about the consequences of problem gambling and help available through the Nebraska Gamblers Assistance Program. This is my hand and the official seal of the City of Beatrice, this 6th day of February, 2023. All right. Under the consent agenda, all items are under the Open Meetings Act is on the wall and is posted. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilman so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. D, approval of minutes of the regular meeting on January 16th, 2023, as on file in the City Clerk's office. E, approval of minutes of special meeting on January 23rd, 2023, as on file with the City Clerk's office. Approval of the Treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $519,322.06. Approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $46,861.96. Approval of pay request number 1 for the Mill and Overlay 2022 project to Pavers Incorporated in the amount of $72,391.91 as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Award bid of armor coating various locations 2023 project to Stay Built Construction in the amount of $48,936.28 as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Approval of the Beatrice Plus funding request for the City of Beatrice Public Properties Department in the amount of $10,000 for improvements to Hannibal Park as recommended by the Beatrice Plus Advisory Board. Item K, approval of Business Plus funding request for the City of Beatrice Public Properties Department in the amount of $5,000 for the purchase of 2 new scoreboards for the City Auditorium as recommended by the Beatrice Plus Advisory Board. Item L, resolution number 7002, executing the agreement for professional services retaining JEO to perform MS4 compliance assistance service and create an annual report for the FY 2022 as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item M, resolution number 7003, appointing Chester McGurry III to the Beatrice Housing Advisory Committee. Item N, resolution number 7004, entering into a lease between the city and the Saratoga Club, Beatrice, Nebraska, Incorporated for the purpose of leasing the cabin at Chautauqua Park. Resolution number 7005, entering into a farm lease with Greg Delabar for farming purposes. Item P, resolution number 7006, assuming any and all rights, interests, and obligations, covenants, and interest in, to, and under all existing and future documents giving rise to obligations to the federal government related to ownership, operation, and maintenance of the Beatrice Municipal Airport. Resolution number 7007, assuming any and all rights, interests, obligations, covenants, and interest in, to, and under all existing and future documents giving rise to the obligation to the federal government, including the commitments undertaken concerning any and all outstanding grant assurances for any FFA grant agreements, passenger facility charge records of decision, final agency decision, and amendments thereto. And item R, Resolution number 7008, applying for federal assistance and any and all other documents necessary for the 2023 Qualified Census Tract Recovery Grant Program for the purpose of making sanitation sewer infrastructure improvements to lift station number 1 and beautification of the downtown areas. Does anybody want anything pulled off?
Mayor, I don't know whether to ask these questions now or do it when we have another meeting, but maybe everybody knows all these answers. Just tell me really quick, how do we take care of, how do we pay for animal services here? That just $5,000 in there going to a gentleman?
Animal services is a contractual obligation. We have a independent contractor.
Okay.
It was out for bid a couple years ago. I don't know what he's got left on his contract.
Okay. Then there's something called with the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, a fourth quarter tipping fee of like $11,000.
So the tipping fee is out the landfill. Every time you take a load into landfill, we owe the Department of Energy and Environment and Energy $1.25 per ton that goes in out there.
Okay. And then there's a whole slew of smaller communities around us where we're, it says first half paid MFO distribution, addition of LB 664 funds of like
Mutual
$250,000
aid.
bucks.
It's the Mutual Firefighters Aid is what that is. The money comes to the city of Beatrice, and then we are the fiscal agent, and we dole it back out to those individual communities.
I see. Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Appreciate the questions.
Bob, items J and item K.
J to Mike, J, I,
J as in John, K as in King.
okay. J and K. Okay, anything else? Mr. McLean.
I move that the items listed on the consent agenda, with the exception of items J and K, be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
You're all in favor? And that passes. Okay. Item J.
I move that item J, listed on the consent agenda, be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Okay. Ted.
Actually, you could have heard them both. I don't have a problem with either one of them. I think they're both good projects. I just don't like the funding mechanism. I wanted to pull them off so I could vote against it. So I would have liked to have seen us vote against it and bring it back and pay for it out of a different pocket. So I just don't like the funding mechanism. It's the only reason I pulled those two off. I just pulled them off so I could vote against it. So.
Toby?
Yes.
Isn't that what that plus program's for, though? Those type of
Yep.
isn't that what we set that up for?
Can I?
Ted, you want to take it?
Yeah. So, yeah, Rich, I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the things that we set it up for. The Keno dollars are there for that as well. The problem I have with it is that the city is asking for city funds. This is being, the Board of Public Works is asking for this. They could have easily has asked for money out of the general fund or easily has asked for money from the electrical department. I just think that if there'd been a private group, if one of the ball teams or somebody was there and they'd made this request, I wouldn't have the problem with it. I have a problem with the way this is done. I don't have a problem with the projects at all.
Okay. Gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes. Okay, item K.
I move that item K, listed on the consent agenda, be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Same
Yeah,
case.
same thing.
All right.
Yep, same thing.
Gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes, 7-1. All right. 3, we got public hearings tonight. Public hearings on the application of Denny and Lorena Liquor Incorporated, doing business as Mom's Corner, 566 West Court Street, Beatrice, Nebraska, for a new application for a Class C liquor license. So the public hearing is open.
We want to have Chief Hickman
Yeah,
and
Chief.
Chet come up.
Yes, please. Gentlemen, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay. In your investigations, what did you find?
This one's really simple. This is pretty much just a name change, business as usual over there. So we found nothing in the zoning investigation that would lead us to say, don't do it.
Okay.
We did an investigation on the subjects that have applied for the name change, and we came up with nothing that would prohibit them from having it, and nothing's changed with the location since the original application.
Okay. Thank you.
So basically, you're just taking it out of Denny's name and putting it in his daughter's name.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else in the council? From the public? If not, gentlemen, your vote, please. Oh, sorry.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:10 PM.
Second.
Okay, now, gentlemen, your vote, please. And we have closed the public hearing.
I move that the application of Denny and Lorraine Liquor Incorporated doing business as Mom's Corner, 566 West Court Street, Beatrice, Nebraska, for a new application for Class C liquor license be recommended to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for approval.
Second.
You want to give that one too? With Fralin? All right.
Any further discussion?
We're in harmony over here.
Just because you're bigger than I am, what the hell?
Seeing none, gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Okay, on to resolutions. Resolution number 7009, executing the franchise agreement and infrastructure lease agreement between the city and Pinpoint Communications Incorporated for the construction, operation, and maintenance of all fiber network to all business and residential properties located in Beatrice.
I move the resolution number 7009 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So you have a couple agreements here with Pinpoint. As everybody understands or knows, back in June of 22, we started with an MOU with Pinpoint. We then proceeded there into October. We had a private partnership to try to work on some terms, as you will. So over the course of about the next year or so, we've been negotiating this agreement. So the franchise agreement is non-exclusive, so it allows other competitors to come in and compete. It's the same type of franchise agreement that we have with Windstream and you have with Charter, so there's nothing different there. They will pay us a 2% franchise fee for the services that they do sell there. The infrastructure licensing or leasing fee that they have, or agreement that we have with them there, it allows them to use our right-of-way, to use our utility poles, to hang the fiber on, have access to those types of infrastructure. In return, what they're going to do is they're going to run the fiber to approximately 45 different city structures throughout town. Those include lift stations, substations, all those types of infrastructure that we have out there. If you saw in the agreement, it lists what the service speeds will be for those different locations. They're also going to hang 6 strands of dark fiber that'll be exclusive to the city, so we could run our own infrastructure on there that we need to. Just like everything else, more and more things are being communicated through the web and through those types of technologies. That this type of infrastructure has been very important, and we've been looking forward to having something like this built out just for the city's use. And then what we're able to do is bring fiber to every home in the community as an additional benefit as well.
What kind of timeline are they looking at, Tobias?
We have a meeting with them Friday to talk about designs. They've already got a lot of it designed, but start laying that stuff out. They're hoping to get started in April. They've already bought a building here in town. They're already hiring a project manager. They're looking to hire some additional staff here, but they're looking to be up and running this summer and hopefully have everything built out within year, 18 months, just kind of depends. I think their plan is to do the city, if you will, kind of in segments. So they'll build out one portion of it, get everything lit, move to the next section of town. And so your section of town may not be the first one, but they are working through everything.
Very good.
So as I read through this, I noticed the first term is 15 years. Yep. And then we go with 20 more years
Correct.
If we renew it. And then an additional 15 years we can't unreasonably deny. So this is like 50 years.
It ends up being a long term. Obviously, they're making quite an investment into the community by hanging fiber and burying fiber throughout the community. Those are similar terms to what you have today with the other ones.
That's where I was going to go. So.
Is there anything I didn't see the thing that was signed last October or whenever it was, but is there anything that these guys are getting that we haven't given to the people that have been partners with us in the community for the past whatever number of years?
Pinpoint has not asked for anything. They're not getting any tax dollars. They're not getting any LB40. They're not getting TIF. They're not getting any of those funds, no.
Okay. How about marketing?
Marketing, they're doing their own marketing.
Okay, we're not involved with marketing
No.
or anything. Okay, thanks.
How many permanent jobs will this be, Toby? You got any idea?
I think they're talking about 5 or 6 permanent jobs. Obviously, some clerical staff to handle bill pays and that kind of stuff, customer service staff, servicemen doing installations, those type of work is what they're kind of looking at for jobs.
This has been one of, I think, the goals for the council for an extended period of time. And it's nice to see that we're moving forward with a company that, quite honestly, like they said, is about a building, has already made a commitment. And I believe that because, other companies can come in, since there's no non-compete clause, I think we have an opportunity to continue to have, hopefully, fiber to the homes, which is going to put us ahead of a lot of communities. From the audience? Seeing no further discussion, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Next resolution is resolution number 7010, executing a loan agreement, promissory note, deed of trust, personal guarantee, and any and all documents necessary to issue said loan between the city and Midwest Housing Initiative Incorporated for an economic development loan totaling $12,500 from funds derived from LB 840 funds as recommended by the Citizens Advisory Review Committee.
I move that resolution number 7010 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So, Midwest Housing Initiatives, some of you may know it as Excel Development, but they are the individuals who came in and bought the old hospital site there about 10th and Arthur Street, took that down, built back several single-family residents, built back several senior living duplexes there. They've got 4 empty lots remaining. What they've come in and asked for is an LB 840 loan for $12,500 to build 1 additional duplex, senior living duplex on one of those lots. They've got their money lined up through the state as well, through the various grant programs they're taking advantage of there. Your loan would be forgiven if they complete the house, I think within 2 years. It might be 18 months, 2 years, somewhere in there. We've got a set date in there. It calls out for exact size of the house that has to be built. It has to be approved by the Community Development Department with a certificate of occupancy, so that's how you'll know when it's complete. We had a very similar loan agreement with them about 2 years ago for the same dollar amount. What happened then was their funding through DED got held up for 2 reasons. 1, DED got flooded with ARPA dollars and they were overwhelmed. And 2, when they finally got to their paperwork, they figured out they filled out the wrong forms and they had asked for the wrong set of money and went back and started over again. So that's the reason for the delay in getting to where we're at today.
Tobias, did they give you any indication why they're only doing, when we first did this, they did the bulk of them. Mm-hmm. So now we only have 4 lots. They basically have possession of them all. Why are we back to doing 1 building at a time? Did they give you an indication?
I'm not sure why they're doing 1 building. Like I said, last time they were looking for 2. Yep. I don't know if it has to do with the grant funding they can get from the state, and that's why they pared it back down to 1 this time. I don't have an answer for that one. They have a waiting list. They've got more than enough clients. That's not the holdup there.
Right. When they did the initial thing, when they had the single families and then they had the duplexes and they were geared for age group, and we had talked to them at that time about doing the rest of them, and that kind of fell on deaf ears. And they said, we ran out of funding for it. But at some point here, and I understand that they're doing this all with basically somebody else's money, but at some point, don't we ask them to finish this up, put their profits into it, and finish the other 2 or 3 lots? I don't know. That's just, I'm sure you've had the same conversation with them that I'm having with you now, so that's why I'm asking you.
Right. We certainly can follow up and have that conversation with them and see how we can help prod them along to finish out those last 3 lots.
that would be
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Any further discussion from the council? From the public? Come on up. State your name and address and
Aaron Schoen, rural Philly, property owner here in Beatrice. My only question is, if they were asking for $12,500 for 2 houses and now they're down to 1, why don't we just half that?
Because they asked for $25,000 and they asked for 2. They're now asking for 1, hence
So
we
they
have
did
to.
lower it amount?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. So that was my only concern.
Yep.
thank you. All right, your vote, please. And the resolution passes 8-0. Okay, tonight we have several ordinances. First ordinance, the ordinance vacating lots 1 through 12 inclusive, block 43, lots 7 through 12 inclusive, block 44, lots 7 through 12 inclusive, block 45, all of block 52, all of block 53, all of block 54, and all of block 55, all in Spencer Place, in addition to the city of Beatrice, and all being located on a part of the southeast quarter of Section 9, Township 3, North Range 6, east of the 6th PM, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-1, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. So, ordinance number 23-1 by number only the first time, 23-1 by number the second time, and number 23-1 the third time.
I move that ordinance number 23-1 be passed and approved.
Second.
Okay. Tobias?
So we have a couple of plats coming through tonight. First thing we have to do is vacate any existing plats that are on that parcel of ground. And we will basically erase all the man-made lines on it and then lay down a new plat. So the first one we have before you tonight is vacating all of these different lots in Spencer Place. Spencer Place is a plat that was filed in like 1888 in the city of Beatrice. At some point, we had vacated all the streets, we had vacated all the alleys, but we never vacated all the lots themselves. And so for those of you who need a little geography lesson in Beatrice, we're down by Froberry Park. If that's not familiar with you, it's the South Water Tower, Mulberry Street as you're heading south out of town. That's kind of the location that we're at there. So we have the first step tonight is vacating some of the lots. It's not the entire red box there you see on the screen. Not all of that ground was platted, just a portion of it. So the first step tonight is to vacate those lots, and then the next thing we'll come back with is the Whitetail Haven Addition will be next.
Okay, gentlemen, discussion. Seeing none. From the audience? Seeing none. Your vote, please. Ordinance passes 8-0. Now we'll do an ordinance approving the plat of Whitetail Haven Addition to the city of Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-2, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Ordinance number 23-2 by number only the first time. Number 23-2 by number only the second time. 23-2 by number the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 23-1 be passed and approved.
Second.
Okay.
So now we're going to come back and have ask you to approve the Whitetail Haven Addition. Went to planning and zoning tonight. They recommended approval of this particular plat. They're platting, I believe it's 1 lot out in that location. It's about a 3-acre lot, I believe. You have one individual who's looking to buy some ground off of that entire red section out there. In order to buy that many acres that close to town, they have to plat it and subdivide it back off. So that is what's before you.
Any discussion from the audience? Gentlemen, your vote. And that ordinance passes. Okay, ordinance vacating Lot 2, Higgins First Addition to City of Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-3, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes. Ordinance number 23-3 by number only the first time, 23-3 by number only the second time, and 23-3 by number only for the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 23-3 be passed and approved.
Second.
All right, so this time we're going to go to the east end of Beatrice. If you go out where Scott Street meets Highway 136 out by the high school, what you see there in the red on the TV screen there is Higgins Lot 2 of the Higgins Addition. So the first step tonight is we're going to vacate that particular lot there, and then the next thing coming up is an addition, the Soni Addition, which will replat that into 3 different lots.
Discussion from the audience. Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Ordinance approving the plot of Soni Addition to the city Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-4, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Basically, this is the,
Yeah, you got to suspend the rules.
that's right. Sorry. A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. Okay. Ordinance number 23-4 by number only the first time, 23-4 the second time, 23-4 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 23-4 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
The plat coming for you is the Soni Addition. It will break this piece of ground into 3 parcels. They'll have access to, the way they're drawn right now is Lot 2. We'll have access on Scott Street there, just by where the drainage ditch is, somewhere in that general location. And then the other 2 lots have access off of that entrance that runs through Lot 2.
Are all of them buildable?
Yes, they're all buildable. Yes.
Any other discussion? Your vote, please. Ordinance passes 8-0. Ordinance to convey real estate owned by the city to Corinne, Discher, and Julie Rasmussen.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-5, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. Passes 8-0. Ordinance number 23-5 by number only the first time, 23-5 by number the second time, and 23-5 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 23-5 be passed and approved.
Second.
Okay.
What we have here is a parcel of ground on North 4th Street. Originally, this parcel was part of our Mow to Own program. It was a vacated portion of a street. Mr. Pat Barber had that contract with the city to buy that. We had valued it at $1,200. We were going through that process. He unfortunately passed away. So a couple months ago, the city council then took action to cancel that contract, obviously, since he was no longer able to fulfill it. And now Corinne and Julie have now come in and bought his property. They've come back to the city and asked if they could just outright purchase that lot. And so that's what you have before you tonight, is they're purchasing that vacated street right of way for $1,200, which is the same value we had it on before.
Any discussion from the council? From the public? Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7011, entering into a contract for sale of real estate to Corinne, Discher, and Julie Rasmussen.
I move that resolution number 7011 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So state statute says you first have to have the ordinance, but then you also need a resolution to authorize the mayor and everybody else to sign the contract and the deed, all those things. And so that's why you have two separate votes on the sale of a piece of real estate.
Discussion from the public. Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Okay. Item 6, public forum. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of any item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council at this time. Anyone here for the city or for the public forum? Come on up. State your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mark Noka, 648 Overlook Lane.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and the City Council members, for allowing me to take this time to tell you why I am in support of the UTVs on the Street Beatrice.
Do we do that now? Or?
Yeah, if you want to talk about UTVs, we're going to bring that up here in just a couple minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
This is a
You're good.
Public forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that way they have a chance to interact with you.
Okay.
When we come at that time. So
So it'll be under discussion in just a few minutes, and you're in good shape.
you're in the right
You
place.
bet. I understand. Believe me. You saw how I did the ordinance today. I kind of scooped up a couple of them, so you're all right.
All right, how do y'all do? My name is David Lang. I'm the property owner of 411 Court Street. I wanted to start off by showing my appreciation for the work that was done next door. Obviously, I shared a wall with that 3-story building, so when you have a 2-story building next to a 3-story building that gets demolished, that's pretty nerve-wracking. So great appreciation for that on behalf of myself and I believe the community as a whole. It's a historic piece of property, not only architecturally, but in the aspects of German American history, which largely is a story of assimilation, and so a lot of that is not told. So bottom line, that's what I want to express. With the contract, there is some discussion that we've been having. Hopefully that can be taken care of offline, or fulfilled offline. And then the other issue with that 3-story building, or 3-story wall, or that 2-story wall that I've now inherited, I can fulfill the the tuck pointing where rafters used to be up to where the second floor rafters were. So I'm getting estimates on that. If it were, if I'd be able to go after the previous property owner, I would, but because this is directly tied to that demolition, that's why I wanted to bring that up. So bottom line, my appreciation for that. I don't like talking to people, so I figured I'd just do that here and use that as a venue. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Wolkin, 1921 Irving. I'm back to complain about let's get the city cleaned up. I think we know the problem properties, and I've been watching and nothing's getting done. And I just thought I'd like to bring it to your attention again that I'm watching and a lot of other people are too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Al Mason, 1300 Lincoln Street. I think it was a few months back, you guys covered the roads outlined for the next 5 years. And I know a couple of the city council members got calls about the school setting up their roads. And I was wondering if the city had heard anything new about what the school was doing with the roads, or if we're funding the roads as the city. I haven't heard much. And I know I talked to a couple of the school board members, and they haven't heard much either. So I was just curious.
Thank you. Anyone else for the public forum? All right. We have 4 discussions and reports. We have Main Street, NGage, then the ATV, UTV, and Chautauqua Park waterfall. So we'll start with the Main Street quarterly report, please.
Thanks.
I'm going to give you guys all a paper copy just because I know in the past you guys have requested that even though you've got it on your computers. Alrighty. Yep, Michael Sothen, Main Street Beatrice. Appreciate you guys having us here to have a conversation about our quarterly report. This is for quarter 1 of your fiscal year, which would be October through December of last year, 2022, kind of the conclusion to the calendar year, start of your guys' fiscal year. Just to keep this short, because it looks like you got a big discussion here behind me. This is a quarter that is really filled with a lot of community activities. And as I told you with my last quarterly report, as we were approaching the tail end of last year, we were definitely seeing a slowdown in people that had interest in starting up businesses. At least the inquiries that were coming in at that time had been slowing for about 6 months. That continued through this quarter. And so really more than 2/3 of last year, we saw a little bit of a reduction for people that are looking at starting a small business within our downtown. This is kind of outside of that quarter, but we have seen a real increase over the last just few weeks. A lot of people, as they're kind of approaching the end of the year, the holidays, they're talking with family, they're thinking about their New Year's resolutions. We had around 9 inquiries in the whole last quarter. We had 6 just within the last 2 weeks, and we've actually got about 3 or 4 new leases that have also been signed in the last couple weeks, which is exciting. So we're starting to see a little bit of a reversal of that trend. That's pretty typical of this time of year. This is just when a lot more business activity is happening is after the new year into January. So you don't see a lot of that activity here in this report. But to highlight just some of the things that happened in calendar year 2022, again, the city of Beatrice did award out $435,000, or at least has pledged those funds to downtown property development, helping with some code compliance, some facade renovations. We're still in the middle of trying to get some of those across the finish line, so I thank Tobias, and I'm guessing Taylor, you're probably working on some of those too, for trying to move those across the finish line. But besides those projects, a lot of those still being pending. Last year we did see 26 total improvement projects. That's everything from maybe $1,000 little small renovation, maybe a little paint job or something like that, to a more deep renovation, totaling $11 million. Now, if you guys know what your fire station costs, that's one of those 26 projects. That's definitely the bulk of it. So we're definitely a little bit smaller projects, but we have several large-scale projects that are currently pending and coming down the pike, and so that's exciting as well. And also, our downtown now numbers right at around 180 businesses that are in operation. At the end of the year, that's a net gain of 31 shops over the last 5-6 years. So that's definitely significant. But the one thing to note is that the net gain and losses for the year were at an even 0. So for every business that we gained, we also lost one in the downtown area. And you can see a list of those that opened up new business last year. So you kind of get a sense of that. And you can also see, just from conversations with you guys, with our board of directors, the oversimplification of what we see as our top 3 challenges, that being property condition, ability to meet future tenant needs, sustaining that business growth, both with our current businesses, keeping them in business, but then trying to attract those new folks to come into town. And obviously, the conversations around infrastructure, of what do we do with the highways, what do we do with some of the other beautification efforts that are being talked about. Again, throughout the rest of the report, you'll see just kind of a little picture list of some of the activities that have been taking place over that quarter and some of the goals and kind of focus areas that we have proposed as we are entering and continuing through this current fiscal year. But with that, that's probably plenty of me talking. Do you guys have any questions? And I'll make room for other people to come up here.
Michael, I really don't have a lot of question here. The Kensington is my
Yes.
biggest question. I know that both you and your board have been active in helping with that. So as a body, are we doing everything that you need us to do? Is there something, do you think that's coming to the end of that?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing up that question. It's literally our biggest single property issue that we have in the downtown area. Been talking with Tobias on a regular basis, almost weekly basis around that property. We have a couple potential strategies that are in place. Luckily, we've had some renewed interest in that property, mainly because there's the conversation that the city's having of also being engaged within that property. It's still owned currently by AgeMark. They are they're working really hand in hand with Main Street and the city at this time. Recently, Rachel and myself actually toured potential developer through that property. We've had conversations with other potential developers that are more interested in that property, thanks to the city expressing interest in being engaged and finding a solution there. And so I do appreciate all that you guys have done. You guys have helped re-energize that conversation here as we hit that close of last year and start of this year.
And Ted, just to give you a note, we've applied for a very substantial grant to help with that sort of sale process. It's a big federal grant, talking $1 million+, and we're just waiting to hear results on that. So that's what we've been kind of doing in the background on that.
That grant, though, however, would behold us to workforce housing with the property. And so we also need to decide, is that the best use that we have available to us, or is there something else? And that's just a conversation that needs to be had. But that grant's would really move that project along. It would provide significant funds to aid with the redevelopment of that property.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Michael?
Here, I do. So Michael, in the past, before my tenure, there's been some discussion within the council that they would like to see in your contract more things that they can actually quantify. So in looking at your last 2 pages, it looks like, are these things normal to your contract? Or you're talking about a number of unique visits and workshops and meeting with current owners? Are those what you had in your prior contract, or is this new stuff?
It's very similar to the structure that we had proposed for the prior contract. A lot of it you'll see is almost identical, but this has been updated for this new fiscal year as well.
Okay, was it in your contract that we don't have anymore?
Yes, that's correct. And if you'd like a copy of that fourth quarter report, I can provide you with one of those that goes into more detail for a direct side-by-side comparison.
And you don't have a contract right now, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I would like to see, Mayor, that we get a contract with Main Street and bring it to the table, and let's look at it and make a decision, yes or no, what we're going to do on their funding. The sooner the better, in my opinion. And we're already 4 months into this new fiscal year, so it's just something we need to decide as a group whether we're going to do it or not, and whether these things that he's got written here are quantifiable enough for you guys that wanted more things to be quantifiable. Okay. I don't know if I'll be here when and if that comes back up, but if I'm not, I just wanted to say one 30-second thing that I've worked with Michael a lot in the last year, and hopefully we get the Creative District grant, and with all the buildings that we're working on downtown, I would sure like to see that contract renewed. But we need to talk about it. We need to at least get it up here so we can talk about it. Okay? Okay. Thanks, Michael.
One just last word of thought, and this actually was an idea that I think maybe Terry suggested a number of months ago. But as you guys look at recognizing certain things as a board and recognizing different investments, whether it's by a property owner or someone starting a business or doing a business expansion, we see other government bodies that do recognition, whether that's of veteran programs or other significant volunteers in the community. One suggestion I guess I just wanted to pass on is if it's something that could maybe be added on a monthly basis, or something is recognizing people that are making those types of contributions and investments into the community, and might be a good way to definitely recognize the hard work that's being done by residents and members of this community.
Okay.
We can help provide some of those names to you if you have interest. So thank you.
Michael, thank you. Okay. Next is the NGage quarterly report.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman, Rachel Krackemeyer, NGage. Before you, in my report, you've heard me talk a lot about childcare. I'm going to kind of take some time to go in depth on why childcare is an issue and an economic development issue at that. And why it's something that NGage is taking on and working this initiative, spearheading it. It's becoming very entangled with workforce development. As you know, our businesses are struggling to find workers to fill their vacant positions. Childcare is a piece of that, because if workers or our young families do not have adequate childcare for their children, they are unable to work, or at least one parent. I can use myself as an example. When I moved here, we had to drive to DeWitt to find childcare. There was no available childcare. I had 3 children that needed care at that time. Current rates for an infant is $665 a month. For a toddler, it's $615 a month. And for a 3-year-old and up is $595 a month. To put that in perspective, per year, that's almost $24,000. $23,700 is what it costs for childcare for 3 kids, spaced about 2 years apart. Okay, $12 an hour salary or an hourly wage is $25,000. So you're, before taxes are even taken out, you're only taking home a couple $1,000s at best. This is part of the problem, and that's not something that the local municipality can fix. That's a state issue, and something that I'm working now with the legislature to talk about how that's funded. And that's also part of why there's multiple millions of dollars available in state funding to help the child care sector and help grow that and make it more efficient. And with that, in your packet is the economic impact report that UNL provided with First 5 Nebraska on the economic impact of inadequate childcare. Also in there is the Gage County specific data as to how that deficit is derived. This is the document that that looks like. So in that impact study, I had it tailored down to Gage County specifically. So I'm going to point out a couple numbers in that study. If you look at table 3, which would be on page 4, the impact of inadequate child care on Gage County families is $3.9 million. That is derived from reducing how much time parents are able to work. So they're either arriving early, leaving late, having to take breaks to go pick up a child or take them from place to place, maybe missing a day of work or a half of day of work, those types of things, that absenteeism. Work productivity is lost, so not being productive at work, not being able to do the education and training needed to be successful at their job. Could be reprimanded by a supervisor, those types of things, or having their pay or hours reduced because of inadequate childcare. And then career prospects, which could be foregoing a promotion because inadequate childcare is an issue. Those are some of those things that impact where these numbers come from. So you'll see the absenteeism, turnover, remain part-time, go part-time, or foregoing a promotion. On the next page, you're going to see the impact on Gage County area employers. That impact is just under $2 million. It's $1,974,000. So that's what the employers are losing because their employees are unable to be at work, or they're not able to be promoted and take on more things, those types of things. And then there's also then the personal income and taxable retail sales, which is just shy of $1 million impact. So in total, we're looking at a $6 million impact on Gage County in it of itself. So this is a big part of why we are working tirelessly now to put in the foundation of what could be successful childcare. Our communities in our county thrives on young families. So we need essentially to put that infrastructure in place in order to grow and thrive 10, 15, up to 50 years from now. So NGage right now with the Communities for Kids initiative that we are working on, we have expended about 50% of those funds in increasing or decreasing the deficit rather by about 88 childcare spots. Within that time, we have had 2 licensed in-home facilities close. So it's a 2-step forward, 1-step back type of thing. So it will take years of work to be able to get this done unless we can really pull in some creative solutions for it. So we are working to get that done. Other than that, we are trying to create some interesting concepts to develop a talent pipeline. We're working with the public school system and with businesses to look at integrating our youth into businesses sooner, as early as 16 years old. So right after their fall semester of their sophomore year is when we're hoping to start integrating students into businesses in paid internships or job shadows. So we've been surveying businesses to find out who would be interested and what they're willing to do to kind of help that. Our hope is that integrating them in, it will get students to understand that we have great jobs and careers right here available for them in Beatrice and NGage County in hopes that they will stay here and raise a family here later on. Aside from that, we have just been working diligently on actively recruiting projects to the area. There's probably half a dozen that we are actively working on, in addition to working with existing businesses on expansions and things like that. So with that, I'll take any questions.
What is First 5 Nebraska? The report was done for them.
Correct. First 5 is the one, they're a nonprofit and they are a statewide entity, so kind of essentially like Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. So they are geared towards advocacy of children within the first 5 years of life and their education and development. So they're kind of spearheading the initiative around the Communities for Kids along with Nebraska Children and Families.
Yeah, I read the report that was provided to you that you provided us, and then I thought I had a pretty firm grasp on it, and I appreciate you detailing it again. But my question is that their report wasn't geared specifically towards Beatrice. You're just going off these things?
So that report was geared towards Gage County as a whole.
So my question is as a body here, what can we do? Or what are you specifically asking us to do?
Be aware that it is an issue, and as you're talking to people within your wards, make sure people know. It's the biggest thing. I have employers telling me right now that they don't believe that childcare is an issue. It's lack of knowledge of what is really truly happening.
So are you actively recruiting people to open childcare facilities?
Yes.
Is that part of what you said that you're reaching out? Is
Correct.
That part of that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. One example would be vacant buildings in town. What can we do with them? Is there a child care provider that would be interested in opening a center? How would we fund it? There's lots of other state funding. Like I had mentioned, there's $66 million that the state has, different pots of money for different avenues to help with childcare. Some of it is tuition assistance directly towards existing providers. A minimal amount of it is for major construction. We need some more funding sources for major construction, which is one of the funding sources that we have now. It can do some major, some minor, depending on what you're wanting to do, but we can revamp buildings for childcare centers. Yes.
Rachel, I see advertising all the time for the daycares that we have needing help.
Mm-hmm.
So will we just compound that further? I mean, that's a vicious circle of you need more people watching more kids. but you can't find anybody to work at your facilities.
And that's exactly right. That's the other thing that we are actively trying to work on the opposite end, is we know that it's very hard. The minimum wage would be a draw because it would be a more sustainable type position. The opposite end of that is childcare providers are already struggling to make a profit. So for example, I talked about how an infant is $665 a month. So right now, a daycare employee or a childcare provider gets paid about $10 an hour. And I'm talking like a center staff, okay? $10 an hour. An infant daily rate is $30 an hour. They're open for about 12 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So that staff member is costing $120 a day. And for an infant, you can only have 4 infants per 1 staff. It's a wash. If you're on the food program through the USDA, that child care provider is required to provide formula and those types of things. So they're losing money on infants. So we have a lot of providers that do not take infants because they don't make a profit. They choose to take 3-year-olds and up. We have one provider who has 32 out of her 70 spots are infants alone. So it's not a sustainable business model. So that's where some of the state regulations are going to have to come in to help combat that and make that a better situation for providers to be a sustainable business, essentially. But yes, it is an issue. Raising that minimum wage to $15 an hour is going to further hurt the industry, in my opinion, because it's not a profitable situation right now. That now they're going to be forced to pay their employees more, which is great for the employee. But if you raise the rates to cover the extra cost of employees, you are pricing out families, which you're then pulling them out of the workforce. So it's just this vicious cycle that we're working to try and fix. But yes, it's definitely something that we're watching and monitoring actively. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to switch gears on you here a little bit. There at the end, you said that you guys are working on bringing businesses in and expanding. How many businesses did you guys bring in to Beatrice last year?
Last year, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I would have to get back to you on that.
About expanding any of the businesses that we have. Do you have any of those?
Expansions, we have...
That NGage was specifically on them, that they did by themselves.
Oh gosh, by themselves? I don't know that NGage does any of that specifically by themselves. It's always been a joint effort. Since I've been here, keep in mind I came in July of last year, so I'm right at 6 months. But in everything that I've done, I've worked in collaboration with Main Street or Tobias specifically to make sure that those happen.
Yeah. All right. I'll try to get some of those figures from Toby then. And you know, I have to say that I on the child's, my daughter-in-law has a child, and you're right, it's a problem, but that's been a problem for when I had kids, you know, and I just hope that we're not using a lot of our time to do something that's it's been a problem for 50 years.
Certainly. Yep.
Rachel, I've had this material for quite a while, but the few people that have closed down, is there one common thread there? Is it just because of regulations and actual cost, they're not making any money doing it? Or is it something else that we can help with some way?
To my knowledge, it's been personal reasons, so that could end up being a vast majority of things. But
Yeah, so it's not something, a line that goes through all of them, okay?
Yeah, totally get rid of them.
Any other questions? Rachel, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is ATVs, UTVs. I believe this was brought up by Tim Fralin. So I'll let him start.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been approached pretty much since I was elected to the city council by several residents of the city of Beatrice and some outliers of the city of Beatrice to bring this before the council. I know it's been before the council before for authorization of UTVs and ATVs on the streets and within the city limits. I did all the research. You and I had a lengthy discussion. Brought you all the notes and details where the state authorizes us to be able to do this. So I think it's time for Beatrice to move forward. I mean, there's several other large communities within the state of Nebraska that's already doing this. All of our little communities around us are doing the same thing. I spoke with Chief Heckman for a while one day on the telephone where he came from. It was authorized up there, so he's used to it. He didn't have any issues with us implementing this within the city limits of Beatrice. So I take any questions at this time.
Okay. Gary.
I'd like to ask our chief to come up and give us his thoughts on some of this.
You didn't think you should get to sit back there, did you?
Did it to you again.
Good afternoon again. I did receive a call from Councilman Fralin about it. Where I'm from, they did have it. As far as enforcement of it, it really wasn't much of an issue there. One thing I would say is that you do have to take into account that the ATV, UTVs don't have the same safety features that cars have. So if you're involved in an accident or a crash, there is more potential of injury that way. But without having studied the statutes on it, I believe they can only cross the highway directly across the road. I don't think they can go at an angle or they can drive down the highway. So it kind of does divide the city into sections because you wouldn't be able to cross. If you're coming from like the Chautauqua Park side, you couldn't cross over the bridge. So they're not driving down the highways. It'd be more on the city streets at that point. And then it would be up to the council to decide, what safety measures they wanted to put in place for the ATVs, UTVs, if you decide to move forward with it.
In general, no major problem for you.
I'm sorry?
In general, there's no major problem with you for...
In my past experience, we did not have any major problem with it. It had been in place for a long time there, but it also was a smaller community. And there, they were actually allowed to drive on the highways. Here, they're not.
These ATVs, do they have to have turn signals, headlights, tail lights, brake lights?
I haven't studied the statute. I'm not 100% sure what it is yet.
I can answer that for you, Chief, if you don't mind.
I can address those.
Rich, you have to have headlights, tail lights, insurance, 30 inches of your little orange flag, like you'd see on I don't know what they call them, but a valid Class O driver's license and a muffler.
Are they required to wear helmets?
No.
Ted, did you?
So you can cross the highway, but you can't ride on the highway.
Correct.
So they wouldn't be able to ride on 6th, wouldn't be able to ride on Court, so those two main highways you can't be on.
You can cross the highway, you just can't drive down it.
You're supposed to cross at approximately 90 degrees in the direction of the highway. So yes, you can't drive down it, go across it.
And just one additional requirement that Mr. Fralin, he got everything else. There's just two, you can only operate ATVs or UTVs between the hours of sunrise and sunset. And then the other thing is you have to have a tail light and headlight on the vehicle, which must remain on while in use.
Yeah.
But no blinkers.
No blinkers required.
So you won't be able to control, know where they're turning, if they just stop and turn in front of you or something.
Or you've got hand signals.
What's our liability if they're not required to wear a helmet like they are on a motorcycle?
You have none.
You don't have any liability.
You have none.
None? No. They have a wreck and try to sue us, no liability.
Nope.
All right.
So that's another part. My question was the highways, one of the questions, but my concern is the safety aspect of it. I ride a motorcycle. I wear my helmet. If they do away with the helmet law, I'm still gonna ride my helmet. If you ask any emergency room person what you call somebody that rides their motorcycle without a helmet, that you call them an organ donor. Car versus motorcycle, car always wins. Car versus one of these, car always wins. I have no problem having a discussion about it, but those are my concerns.
So I would, for those who are concerned, I'm not saying you.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I pulled the stats from the state website. Fatal crashes since 2011 through 2020 of an all-terrain vehicle is 6. Let's see here, I don't have my readers on. Injury accidents was a 49. Total crashes combined 63. So in 10 years, that's a 6.3 average across the state of Nebraska, not just this little community of Beatrice.
Any more questions for the chief?
I don't have any for the chief.
Okay. I think we got a few people who'd like to speak on or opposed to it, so why don't you come up and
No, that was good. That was a lot of the things I just wanted to talk about, so I'm not gonna go over it again.
Mark, you gotta say your name and stuff again.
My name is Mark Noka. I live at 648 Overlook Lane. Again, thank you. And I am support for allowing UTVs on the street of Beatrice. And why do I want it? Well, I like driving my UTV. It's as simple as that. There's people that like driving around the convertibles, open top Jeeps, bikes, motorcycles. Something that they enjoy doing. That's what I like to do as well. So if you give me the opportunity to ride around the streets of Beatrice, I'm going to do the same thing. And then, I heard that this was coming up for discussion, and I asked other people to come and support it. And they said, you're wasting your time. It was already brought up before. City council said, no, they're not going to listen to you. It's not worth it. I said, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll try it again. All they can do is say is no. I'm used to hearing no at my age, and I can accept it. But it also should come with a reason. I think it's a great opportunity for the mayor and the council at this time to let the people of Beatrice know that you are listening and that you are wanting to make a change and not just say no just because it's easy. You can adopt it, you can make it happen, but you can also pull the plug anytime. If it's not working, I'd be the first one to say, don't let it happen anymore. So basically, I hope that we can move on to the next step and come up with a plan with input from both sides to make it to where we can have UTVs here in Beatrice. Thank you for your time.
any questions? Okay. Anybody else?
Tony Arena, 308 South 21st Street. I don't have a lot to say except I don't have one. I probably never will, but I do support this. I think that if you have one and you want to ride around the streets of Beatrice and do that, not drive down the highway, just drive across the street, I think it's a good thing. Get people out in the town, maybe support businesses. It's like,
Aaron Schoen again, rural Philly. I just wanted to point out a couple things. I'm not against it, obviously, and you guys know what I do. I don't see very many issues with them. The biggest issues I always see in any small town is it's the kids driving the ATVs and UTVs. I know Wilbur, for instance, which is one of our neighbors, has a ordinance in place where they do have the ATVs, UTVs, and I believe you have to get a permit from the city, which I think it would be a good idea. So if you issue a permit to that person, you can check to make sure they got insurance. You can hand them a pamphlet that has your rules so they're aware, and we're not just saying, hey, free for all, go out there and conquer. At least, you know, you got a permit that you can, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a $5 permit, but, you know, just something to get them so they know what they're doing. The other thing is, touching base on like Mr. Fairbanks' question, you guys can impose other regulations according to the statute. So if you want to put a regulation where it says they either have to wear helmets, you can do that. Another thing is, I'm not sure, but I think only 77 is the only one they're not allowed to be on. I think 136, it says a controlled access highway with more than 2 lanes is the only ones they're not authorized on. So, I mean, you can ask your attorney, but that, I believe, unless 136 is considered control access and the turn lane counts as that's what I was wondering. Yeah. So would parts of 136 then be fine though? Yeah. Okay. Basically, that's all I got. I just wanted to be aware since I knew a few other things I've dealt with before.
I have excuse me, Aaron, not trying to put you on the spot or anything, because this has been something since the mayor's radio show the other day. My phone's been kind of busy, because I think somehow it got leaked out who brought this up. But the subject of golf carts is also included in this, and you get to travel around in your job. How are the smaller communities in the area letting, how do I say this without, how is it, is it legal or illegal for them?
It's legal depending on the ordinance. State law kind of specifically tells you it has to be adjacent to a golf course. So, I mean, you might be able to, you know, make your own city ordinances on that to tailor it a certain way. Well, I usually don't have any problems with people unless usually it's the kids driving, and that's where I have an issue with, and I'm not going to cite a kid.
No, I was just hoping that you would bring that up, that is against the state statute. That's all I wanted to
Right, yeah, it's technically, yeah, you'd have to tailor it your special way, I'm sure.
Well, I don't think we can go easier than the state statute, can we? No. So, so.
I believe golf carts is very specific, like you said, adjacent to.
Yeah, contiguous to the golf course, which I've never seen a golf course in Plymouth, DeWitt, Philly.
Right. And it's usually if
not
they're
picking on you people, by the way.
If they're being responsible, I give them a break. I mean, it's, to me, common sense.
I appreciate your input.
Go ahead.
Alvin Slapnishka, 310 South 21st. To go along with Aaron there, we frequent Wilbur quite a bit. We have a golf cart. They come out, I get the sticker. It's $10 for the year. We buy it for the year. We're usually there for check days. And if you want it just for the check days weekend, it's $5. But you got to have insurance. The ATVs, I'm just telling you what they have. I'm not trying to suggest nothing there. The ATVs, four-wheelers, you have to have a helmet. Got to be 18 to drive them. This is their stuff. I mean, I was going to bring the paper, and I thought, well, you guys ain't going to care about Wilbur. But I'm just telling you the rules we have to abide by over there. And I can tell you, even the weekend of Wilbur, yes, we've seen kids riding them. We are not in favor of that. Even of us that go over there, we don't need that. We had one year where we seen a kid get in a wreck, excuse me, and stuff. But and that's what we feel here, the few of us that have talked about it. We would be totally against children riding them here under the age of 18. Once again, that's all up to you guys, your statutes, the Nebraska laws and stuff. But I just want to tell you how things do run over there a little bit, and I've never seen no issues. Besides the one incident, and shouldn't have been a kid on it, and Thankfully, he was close to home, but still doesn't matter. He shouldn't have been on it. I just want to pass that on to you. Thank you.
Very good.
What does the state say, excuse me, what does the state say about valid driver's license versus a certain age?
State specifies that they just need to have a valid Class O driver's license.
So I know that Alvin said 18, and
Yeah.
so if you're 16 and have a valid driver's license, you would be able to drive.
Depends
So
on,
again, you can modify your ordinance to have other things. The state will allow anybody with Class O, but with that, you can add age restrictions, helmet requirements, things like that.
So, side note, I'm not going to be involved in all the conversations that's going to be going on here, but like the council people that do actually discuss this, to remember, a couple of things here. I worked, the last 10 years that I delivered Hebron, Nebraska, they allow this, like a lot of small towns do. So I shared, and I drove for a living. I drove 200 miles a day. So, and shared the road and the highways in most of those towns with these things, with golf carts, with ATVs, with UTVs. And I really didn't have a lot of problems, but there's a lot less traffic in the small towns. And Tim said, he gave you all the stats. I think the stats would probably be, they're skewed because these aren't allowed in the cities. They're not allowed in Class 1 communities. They're not allowed where there's people and traffic. I drove in Beatrice for 26 plus years. I drove in Hebron for 10 years. There's a lot more traffic in Beatrice, a lot more chances for accidents. So just keep that in mind. I mean, when you're having this discussion and you look at this, if we as a body are going to allow this, I'd like to see us put some real strict guidelines on it, whether or not they're allowed on 136 or 7 by state statute. I wouldn't want to see them on any of those streets. I ride my bicycle in town, and it's frightening. So I'm not going at a quick speed and thinking that I'm part of the traffic. So as you guys are having that conversation, just remember there's a lot more traffic in our community than there is in the small communities that these are allowed in. So a lot more.
Go with Gary first.
I don't think we need to be more restrictive than what the state calls for. And when I lived over by the country club, I seen golf carts buzzing all over, and I don't see a difference between that and what they want to do here. So I would hope that we can get it on the next agenda and vote for this.
go ahead, Rich. I think you had your hand up before I did.
Well, I was just, I was actually going to ask Ted, because Ted and I were on when this came on the first time. And I believe that we were just having, and it wasn't all kids that we were having trouble with. There were some adults that was just, excuse my language, raising all kinds of cane on those things. And that's where the main problem came from, was a lot of people were tearing up and tearing around on those things. And it may have been just a gut reaction to the complaints that we were getting. Now, if we could put some things into place, I'd have no problem with it whatsoever. But I think there does have to be some rules and regulations put down on it.
So, Rich, this was allowed at one time?
No.
Years ago?
It really wasn't allowed. They were just doing it. And I think one of the things that we put on there, we had some of the downtown folks that would put snow blades on them and run up and down and clean the sidewalks in front of their businesses. I think we still allowed that, didn't we, Ted?
Yeah,
I believe
there's a different, clearing snow is a different animal. We had somebody from the community approach us and want to have this done, and there was a lot of discussion about it, but we as council voted against it at that time.
Well, I think in this case, I mean, we've had a good discussion. I think, as Chief said, hasn't really had time to look at the statutes. I think we need to refer this to the traffic committee.
Yeah.
And have them study this situation. And, Councilman Fralin, it's probably a good idea to attend.
Yep, absolutely.
And view your opinions. And I think there's some interest, but I think the overall interest is safety. And so I think how we'll continue this is now refer it to the traffic committee to take a look at what possibilities they might have. So, all right?
Can I bring something up first?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor? I know that, everybody's got safety concerns, and that's a valid point, absolutely valid point. When we get down to the nuts and bolts on this, so technically, a three-wheeler would be allowed in the ATVs. That would be one that I would absolutely say no to, in just my opinion. I'm just looking through some of the policy considerations that come out to us. I agree with Gary. We go straight down the list and don't make it stricter. However, in the interest of safety, there is some things we have to do as a city council. And, three-wheelers would be one that I would highlight. I agree with the ATVs wearing helmets. The UTVs are some cases cost more than a new car. They are heated, they're air conditioned, they have roll bars, they have seat belts, they have radios, they have everything that your car has. And my UTV, for example, is perfectly safe. I took it up to the state of South Dakota. I paid $70 for a yearly permit to go ride their trails. And you can ride on any highway in the state of South Dakota except for an interstate. But they also, the people I seen on ATVs, and I didn't read their laws on ATVs. I don't know if they have to wear a helmet, but most of the ones I seen on the trails on ATVs did have helmets on. Because I agree, we got the helmet law here in the state of Nebraska, but when you're in an enclosed vehicle, you don't have to wear a helmet. And then a UTV is enclosed for the most part compared to an ATV where you're in the wide open. So I just like to add that before, and I do agree that it needs to go to the traffic committee for their considerations, and I look forward to seeing what they come back with.
I would like to see an array of cities of similar size that have allowed it so that we can get their feedback as to whether they like it, whether they don't like it, if there's issues, anything like that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the ones I did research and pulled their documentation was Columbus, Nebraska, Seward, Nebraska. I couldn't, for some reason, McCook's is in there, but I couldn't print it off. So there's equal size towns and compatible to the size of Beatrice that are currently doing it. Yeah. And you can go on there. I mean, their stats are going to be in the stats that I shared, and they run pretty much straight down the line with the state statutes with a few blurbs here and there. For instance, even go to the little community of Wymore, I think it's $10 down there. Perfectly legal. They charge $10. The only thing I caution the city about doing, and I'm not against putting a fee on for registration on this. However, I think we should, before we assess any fees, see what happens with Senator Slama's LB 66 that's currently in front of the Nebraska legislature, which will take a UTV and ATV, and you're going to have to go to your county courthouse just like you do a vehicle. So if that would proceed and happen, then we would only have that in place for a short period of time, which would be a waste of city funds to go get something developed and then throw it away, because you can't charge a UTV an additional $10 or operate when you don't charge a car an additional $10. So just throwing that out there as an example. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
I just want to say I agree with Dave on communities of other size and use it for comparisons, but I've always believed, and I still believe, that we need to do what's right for Beatrice. We don't always have to copy somebody else. No offense, Dave. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, we will refer that to the traffic committee for their opinions and what might be coming up, that we have something that we can look at to say yes or no. So, all right, we'll move on to our last discussion item tonight. We'll turn this over to Councilman Fairbanks, Chautauqua Park waterfall.
Well, I appreciate you putting this on here. I guess what I'd like to do is get a little, and there's just a little bit here in your packet. There's not much history behind it, but I'd like to ask, I'm going to put the arm on Tobias here just a little bit. If you'd give us a little bit more, I can do it, but if you just give us a little bit more than this, and then I'll add on to it.
Sure, I'll try my best. I am not a Chautauqua Park waterfall history buff.
Okay.
So if I do say something wrong, I expect some people out there to be willing to step up and help me here. My understanding it was built in the 1930s as part of the WPA project back during that time period. I don't know how long it was functional then. I know back in 2006 we had some issues with it, and I know at that point we contributed some money out of Beatrice Plus into it to put in a new pump. To help pump some groundwater out. Ultimately, that did not succeed. I don't know how long that pump worked or didn't work. I don't know if it was weeks or months or days, but I know it ultimately did not solve the problem. And I don't know the last time that thing had water flowing over it. It's been several years at least since the last time it's had water flowing over the falls.
Well, pretty close. So I brought this to the council back in 2006. We used Beatrice Plus dollars. We called it something different then. But Hydos, Lamel Plumbing at the time, they did a lot of the work for free. Project they wanted to see done. And basically what happened was there's a small retention pond on the road, on the other side of the road to the east. And we pumped it from there in a circulating pump and pumped it over the falls. Ran for about 3 years, and then the park flooded. And when the park flooded, the pond filled up with silt and couldn't dig it out anymore. It ruined the pumps. It filled up the pipe. We got the pumps turned off for the falls before the flood. Like you do a lot of things that in the bathrooms and everything else you do in the floods, but the pond filled up with silt, and so it was super cost prohibitive to dredge the pond and reset the pumps and put in new lines. And so after the flood, we no longer used it. So, but it ran for about 3 years. So before that time, it had quit running if my memory serves me right, it quit running in the late 80s or the early 90s. So it hadn't been for about 20 years, and now subsequently for about 15 years. So I know that there's a couple of people in a group here that I've talked to, but what I talked to Tobias about this. The city has an estimate of what this would cost to put it back into not just trickle of water, but something that is sustainable, something that is that the floods won't hurt, something that we can do. And the cost of that project we're going to talk about in just a second, and I'll get to that. But the city would have some in-kind services, the Parks Department, the Water Department, Electrical Department, for the project. And then the remainder of the cost of the project is the digging up the boulders, laying the concrete, putting in everything that needs to be done, the circulating pumps, and the mechanical part of that. So if I'm right, Tobias, that dollar amount is somewhere near $100,000. Is that correct?
So the amount for the outside services is about $85,000,
okay.
And then yes, you have to add into that our labor the city would contribute to it, and I have not put a dollar amount to that number.
Okay, so and that was last year. So let's assume that $85,000 is now about $100,000. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So I looked at. I asked Tobias, and he provided for me. There's 3 different places. Actually, there's 4 different places that the money could come from. This Keno dollars, Beatrice Plus dollars, and the lodging tax. Everything that we've set in place for those 3 funds mirrors what those funds should be spent for. This is an improvement for the parks. So what I would like to have the council discuss and give us an up vote or a down vote is to earmark $100,000 out of one or some of those funds. If you total what's available in those funds, it's just south of $600,000, if I'm right, presently. And moving on to next year, would it be available in 2020? For the next year, after our budget in October, it would be north of $700,000, right?
Yeah, at the end of this fiscal year, at the end of fiscal year 23, you'll have 650.
650. So if we would just, so I'd like the council and the other part, the fourth place to get it is simply the general fund. At any given time, we have anywhere between $2.5 million and north of $3 million in the general fund that is unencumbered funds that we could tap. Simply have to amend the budget. And I would hope we could do that. But one of the other three funds I think is probably a better place for it. I know that there's a group that has done trying to do some fundraising, and here's the problem with that. It's hard to get somebody to commit to donate funds to a project when the city hasn't said, we're going to do the project, that it's a viable project, because once you donate, you can't get the money back. One of the other problems is everybody likes to put in the last $10. So from my standpoint, from where I sit here, I commend the people that are trying to raise funds privately, and if there's some funds that they know they have, I would certainly not turn those down. But I would like to see us put in $100,000 into the project, guarantee $100,000 in the project. If it goes over that, this group would have to raise those funds. If it's under that, and they still raise funds, we can offset those. We can offset it with what they raised. But to get it to move forward and have it done and get it bid and have it started this year, I'd like us to give us an up vote or a down vote on that. And I obviously don't expect that to happen tonight, but that's where I'm at. So
This, and I would agree with Ted, when that was running, we had a lot of people that really did like that.
Yeah.
And it was just trickling in. Now, Becky said, when my wife said she remembered back in the 80s when it was really a nice fall. When you're going to fix this thing, are we going to run the plumbing clear down to that duck pond?
No. That was what happened last time, Rich. And when the pond filled up with silt from the flood, and then it fouled. So Tobias has got I'm going to lean back in on Tobias here. So he had got some kind of a project, and you can explain what the project would be and how it would work, right?
Yes. So again, we went out, we talked to a landscaper to kind of come up with a plan of how to solve this problem. It would be set up very much like your pond in your own yard would be. There will be recirculating pool, if you will, that is then, when it has a float in it, when it gets too low, basically it trips the city water. It flows more water up into the pool. It then circulates back up to the top of the waterfall, and then kind of just runs that way. Is the way we look at setting this up. Many of the original stone work is still there. It's just buried by years of silt. And so a lot of the labor is cleaning those off so you can reuse them. We will take donations on free labor if anybody wants to come down with a shovel and help us clear them out. But that is part of the work as well, is just kind of clean up what's been sitting down there and covered by years of flooding.
Where's this recirculating pond going to be, like part of the actual structure, or like just to the north of it in that area, or?
I couldn't tell you for sure. I've not seen any drawings of where exactly it'd be located. If it's going to be underneath or above or off to the side, I couldn't tell you.
Well, I know for one, that's Chautauqua Park has quite a few big attractions each year. Especially during Homestead Days, and I can't say that I remember even as a kid that seeing the water flow down there. It was much stuff as we did at the Sertoma cabin as a family, and but definitely I think this is a good project to move forward on and do some stuff. We need to do things that beautify the city of Beatrice, and I could eventually see that if that thing's back up and operational, it becomes a popular place for senior pictures and all kinds of stuff like that, like you see some of the other stuff. So.
No, I just wanted to thank Ted for doing a lot of groundwork on this. I do think it's a worthwhile cause too, and we've got a historic park. I think sometimes, even though it's hard to justify the money and where it comes from, I'm sure Tobias has to work through that part of it. But sometimes we just have to spend money for some projects like this to help the community. You can't get dollars returned from it, but it's just a good cause. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
I guess one of the things that I would totally, at least agree with Ted is I think we need to set a maximum, and then whatever is raised also offsets that, because there may be some other foundations that might be interested in committing to those. And so I think, having a partnership with the group that's raising money and other foundation parts in the city makes a lot of sense to share the wealth.
Yeah. These guys are.
Gary?
I think this is a worthy project too, and I hope we can move forward on it and don't drag it out forever. But I also think that when we pay our taxes and the city collects our taxes, they expect something out of us other than just streets and stuff like that. And I don't know why everything we want to do, we have to put the touch on everybody for money. I think this is one of the things that we should do as a city and not go around asking groups to give money. We pay our taxes and we've got the money to do this, and I don't think our taxpayers expect us to hoard our money. We should spend it for things like this when we've got it and when we can do it.
I just got one thing to add. If you guys are going to do this, make sure that it's a good waterfall and not a trickle, because when that trickle was hokey.
It came out of a 4-inch pipe.
Yep.
Back in 2006, and I think people, although disappointed, I still think they were still thrilled that it happened.
They were thrilled to have it.
In the 70s, when I remember it running, there was a 3 or 4 foot fall across the top. The older guys there from Beatrice, they're nodding. So. Yeah.
He just called you old.
Anybody from the audience want to come up? Oh, you got to come up. Put your name and address.
My name's Sherry Fletcher. I live at 1001 Jackson Street. And my daughter is helping with this too, which is great to have another generation in there. But as we had talked about, there's a lot of people that have not ever seen that. We have people that think it's a cave. We have people that have never seen the water run over it. And if we don't do something soon, we're not going to have any generation that ever seen it run. So that's why we're trying really hard to get this to happen very soon. And Ted, thanks for all your work.
It is important.
Yeah, it really is. And we have had with the fundraising, we've had people that have said, well, it's the park. Doesn't the city pay for anything for the parks? And we had just said that they plan to do the maintenance and keep it up so that in 2006, when we lost it, it wouldn't be at a loss then. So I think it's great if you guys can support it.
So, hey, Cher, let me just say, so does that mean there's been no money raised at all?
Well, Shalina would probably know more money about the money. Here, let me switch places.
There's 2 chairs.
There's 3 chairs.
Sherry, don't go.
Okay, I can stay.
Yeah, don't go. 2 chairs.
I'm Shalina McGuire, 722 North 7th. And I'm a member of the Friends of the Falls trying to get the waterfall back up. So I don't know for sure if we've had any money come into Gage County Foundation.
We have not.
Yet. You have not? Okay, I asked this morning, but I didn't.
We have not yet.
Okay. Well, I've had $150, and I went to numerous things, but I just keep telling myself we've only been really doing this for a month. I mean, we really have.
Yep.
So, but we have talked to numerous people, talked to numerous groups. We have about 3 grants that we're putting in for, one that we already have for Gage County Foundation. So, and you're asking about the tanks will be underneath. They'll be like from front of the waterfall. The tanks will be down underneath there, and the rocks that they dig up will be around it, so that it'll all match. The aesthetics won't be changed. It sounded like from the like hardscape person. So yeah, there'll be a waterfall that comes down. I think it said 4 foot, I believe, on the. I don't know if it even said that on there, to tell you the truth. I was just there when the guy was there, so 4 foot wide fall for. At least that would come down into a small pond, then have another waterfall that'll go down in the tanks. So,
How many people are in the Friends of the Falls?
how many people? There's about 10 of us that get together once a month. That's about how many we've had in the group, but we have over 100 people on the site. So
the first time I seen it was on social media. There was some stuff in there, and
Different group.
Is it a different group?
It's a different group now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
I didn't know if it was
County
the same one.
Foundation, we pretty much December when we finally were
I think so.
able to use
Yeah.
the
the tax thing. So that's what we're waiting for.
And that's what was the slowdown. Nobody wants to make a donation that they can't write off. And so we just pretty much got that in December. And it's exactly how Ted says. Everybody's for it, but they're afraid to give the first money towards it, I think.
Yeah. And I think he's right about they're scared to put their money into something that
the city has.
That we haven't agreed to do.
we have not agreed to do.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, does anybody else have any questions?
I just want to thank you for all the work you've done. It takes a lot of organization to put something like this together, and thank you for doing it.
Thanks. Anybody questions? Yep, nobody?
Anybody else from the audience? Okay, well, we'll work on this little project and see where we end up here. Thank you very much. The next regular council meeting, I'll pay this to your attention. It will be Tuesday, February 21st. I believe the holiday for President's Day is the 20th, so the city council will actually meet on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And there will be a work session on February 27th. A motion for adjournment.
I move the meeting be adjourned at 8:40 p.m.
Second.
Your vote, please. Adjourned.